Hello everybody, so this video is entitled MSTR Stock Extreme Calm Fearless Strategy, and of course I titled the video Extreme Calm because this is the feeling I got after listening to the call, and this is the demeanor that Saylor had. He was extremely calm, and of course this is to be contrasted with the madness that crypto Twitter is going through. Fear and greed of 5. Yeah, this is a fear and greed level. This is a once every 5-year fear and greed level. In fact, I could not find a level lower when I zoomed out. This is a drop. This is a fear in Bitcoin incomparable to anything that has happened, at least within the past 5 years. It's actually lower than the events of 2020 fear, believe it or not. So yeah, pretty bad timing for strategy to have their Q4 call, not going to lie. But if you look at the stock price, as expected, strategy did not react whatsoever to the call. You can see the correlation held up pretty good. Bitcoin was down 30, think about that, 13% in one day. Bitcoin was down 13% in one day. Strategy is supposed to be 1.5x Bitcoin. Strategy was actually down only 17% today. And of course, in after hours, Bitcoin is still down. So strategy is slightly down too. You can see strategy is just correlated to Bitcoin. It just follows that correlation. That correlation right now is about a 1.3, 1.33. This is consistent with what we've seen the past few days, where the correlation of strategy has been getting lower to the downside. This tells me there are people buying strategy. There are people getting it. And of course, if you've listened to every single conference call since 2022, like I have, you learned very little on this call. There was essentially nothing new. And I think the call could be summarized like this. All they have to do is wait, and they did mention that. And at one point, and towards the end of the call, Saylor said, "We are sitting on 46 billion worth of Bitcoin growing at 30% a year." They don't need to do anything. They can just sit on the stack and wait for it to grow by 30% a year. And if they do that, with MNAV at 1.08 right now, if they do that, they will greatly outperform most stocks. Of course, they are continuing with stretch. They are doubling, tripling, quintupling down on stretch. It's all about stretch for them at this point. That is all they do. So we had a few mic drop. We actually had one mic drop on the call, which is actually much lower than I thought. I was saying it was 15K. I guess they went through their numbers. The extreme downside, they can withstand a 90% decline down to the 84 price level. So that's when they made the presentation. So that's down to 8K. So they can go down to 8K. And literally, Fong Li said on the call that they'd be fine for 7 years with Bitcoin trading at 8K. They updated the leverage, they updated the debt for the price of 63,000 as they were doing the call. So of course it's showing a little less debt if you look at the slides. But he did say that right now strategy was 13% leveraged if you looked at the converts. And the value of the converse versus the highly low price of a Bitcoin bag of 63,000. Of course, 13% leverage, it is nothing. Try to find someone who owns a house in a fancy neighborhood, in a bad neighborhood, in any neighborhood. Try to find a household who's only 13% leverage. Typically, they're close to retirement when that's the case. It's way less leverage than real estate, way less leverage than most companies. It's not a lot of leverage. Not to mention, Saylor was asked on the call if the $2.2 billion worth of cash, they have a USD bag, a USD stack. Someone asked on the call if they could use that 2.2 billion to pay for some of the earlier converts that are due in 2027. Saylor said, yes, absolutely, it's unencumbered. It's any business purpose. We can do whatever we want with that. So there you go. Just the USD reserve could wipe out a few of the convertible offerings from 2027. They did mention, of course, the old FUD dying. That was the FUD over Christmas, that MSCI would take them out. Of course, surprise, surprise, that did not happen. MSCI did not take them out, but think about how many accounts, how many new followers the account that pushed that FUD got. See, this is the problem also of social media. We reward the FUD, we reward the fear by a follow. That's very problematic. People reward the fear by a follow. That's very problematic. That was obviously FUD. I tried to fight that FUD MSCI like I could back then with my little YouTube video, but I'm a small channel, so nobody really cares. But I'm just saying, the old FUD died, and Saylor actually concludes this presentation talking about quantum FUD. I'll briefly address it, quantum FUD. It's true that it was the FUD of last month. That was the quantum FUD. We'll see. I think we may getting into an Epstein FUD this month. Whatever. There's always a FUD with Bitcoin. Everybody tries to dismiss it. Because, of course, the interests after which it's going, the banking interest, the commercial banks, the deposits, the interest after which this is going, gold. These are highly, traditional interests, and they will fight. They don't want to be disrupted. Once again, barely nothing new. If you follow the business day after day like I do, barely nothing new. I think it's noteworthy to say that they didn't even discuss the software business. Wow, that was the first time. Zero discussion of the software business. I happen to believe, I've said that before, that a spin-off of the software business could be possible. The fact that they don't talk about it during the call is very telling. They could spin it off and keep the shares in the old business. I don't even know if that makes any sense. But then, of course, if you spin it off, then you'll have people who try to FUD and say they're not an operating company. So I think they're keeping it for now. But I think down the road, they might look at, just selling it and getting $1 billion out. Or maybe not. Maybe they keep it as a legacy of the past. Anyways, that business doesn't matter at all anymore. When I first started covering this stock, the software business was actually part of the thesis. It was a big protection of the downside. When I first started getting into strategy, the stock adjusted was about $20, $23, I think. That's when I started covering it. The software business was really important back then because it was like a buffer. It helped you on the downside. Now it's totally irrelevant. They don't even talk about it anymore. All right, there's a little something new. And of course, I've more or less followed the crypto tokens that will be based on Stretch. One of them is getting launched in April, getting a lot of hype. Less than 1% volatility, 68% yield. And of course, the delta between 11.3% yield and 8% yield is the payment for a third party to absorb the volatility. That's what Saylor calls layer 3 digital money. Looks like a stable coin is coming. Like I said, maybe in April, a stable coin based on Stretch yielding 6-8%. But that's the first time I see this. So I must have missed it. The Hope UK regulated MPS project. I must have missed it. So I will do research on this. But if you know about it, please let me know in the comments section, as the UK is likely waking up right now. Please let me know in the comment section and tell me what this is. I knew he was working between the US and Abu Dhabi on a checking account. Like, we know the next stage is a checking account based on Stretch. He said that multiple times. Could it be the UK? That's the first to get a checking account based on Stretch and innovation within TradFi. Why not? This is also the first time I hear ETFs being upcoming based on Stretch. I'm curious to see what they could do with that. That would be interesting. Of course, as you know on this channel, I'm all about pure form. I've been pretty critical of any ETFs, whether it's MSTX or what was that name of that ETF that gave a yield that people were so excited about months ago that I've never liked. Anyways, I don't even know what happened to these now. So the ETF is interesting. Of course, the story of Stretch is always the same. Everything they do, the raise of the cash, the raise at a 1 MNAV, all of this that they do is to increase the credit worthiness of Stretch. The more they have a stack, the greater the worthiness of Stretch, the more Stretch they can increase. They are also working, and this is the same slide as last time, they are working on awareness and trying to create some awareness around Stretch, right? Understandable, a big retail buyer, because Stretch is actually the most compelling perhaps to a retail investor, and perhaps to a retail investor living in California or in New York. That's when it gets really compelling, of course, because as you know, Stretch is all about return of capital. It's a tax-deferred instrument. You start paying taxes on your yield once your cost basis is written down to zero. So in other words, you have about 9 years of quote-unquote tax-deferred dividends, and that's a very big deal. You know, we know early compounding is so important in any investment, and that's a really big deal, especially if you live in a high-tax state like a New York City or, you know, a California, or, you know, there's even states like Chicago is expensive too, right? There's a lot of states in the U.S. where there's pretty high state tax and even city tax. So it's important to realize that this is a big deal. Stretch is especially a big deal for high-tax states. You know, unfortunately, me in Texas, I don't save as much, right, if I were to buy Stretch, so I'm not as interested. I'm all about the common, as you know, on this channel. I'm all about the common. I love the common. Lastly, fighting the FUD. So I think sure, I mean, he addressed a few things about quantum. I mean, I myself have talked about quantum before. It would only impact essentially the older wallets, like it's essentially a problem with older wallets or people who have not upgraded to wallets that prevent spending from that wallet. Like it's well accepted new practice that the public key is not published. So you don't spend from your wallet ever because you don't want the public key to be in the public domain. If the public key is in the public domain and we have quantum computing, somebody can decode that public key, get your private key, and steal the Bitcoin. But for as long as I've been in Bitcoin, as you know, it's been since 2015. Unfortunately, I sold. I sold. I would point that out. I sold. I thought I was real smart. I sold it at 250 anyways, only to get back much later at a much higher price. Keep that in mind if you invest in Bitcoin, right? If you sell at 63, think about that. If you sell at 63, will you be buying back at 350, 400 in 2029, 2030? Will you be buying back then at this price? Maybe. Happened to a lot of the people who caught on Bitcoin early. Happened to most of them, actually. You know, the key is in being extreme in your hodling. That's the key to winning in Bitcoin. Anyways, interestingly, he goes through all of the different FUDs that he's been. I know for a fact he's missed a few FUDs here. He's definitely missed a few. You know, let me know in the comment section which you think he missed. There's a few I can think of right now. Quantum FUD is just a FUD right now. This is just to show that when a technology is this revolutionary, you're going to have endless FUD. Endless FUD. This is no different from when mass manufacturing of steel allowed bridges over the Mississippi, and townspeople would not want to go on the bridge because they thought it was ungodly, they thought it would collapse. He had to have elephants come out to prove to the people of a town that steel was an appropriate technology. Same with flight. People didn't want to get on planes because they thought planes were flying too close to God, and it was sinning to fly on a plane. Many super innovative discoveries, right? I mean, flight is more for discovery than anything. Many of these discoveries have epic FUD for decades. Epic FUD for decades. Quantum is the FUD of the day. We will have more FUD in the future. And every time what we need to do is to debunk the FUD. People hate the new technology, and they will keep fighting the FUD. And social media just makes it worse. It just makes it worse because social media incentivizes negativity. So that's why I don't do that on this channel. Extreme calm is the name of my video. Probably not gonna get a lot of views. That's okay. Anyways, This was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe. Follow me on Patreon. Follow me on X. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.